The red lights flashed across Kepler Station as another explosion shook the metal walls. Commander Thexla grabbed the rail to keep from falling. Her blue skin had turned pale with worry. The station was dying around them. "How much time do we have left?" she asked the young officer beside her. "The shields will fail in 2 hours," Qatar said. Her voice shook as she read the numbers on her screen. "Maybe less." Thexla looked out the window at the enemy ships. Dozens of dark warships surrounded the mining station like hungry wolves. The Zephyrian raiders had come to destroy everything, just like they had done to 12 other colonies in the past month. The station was home to 12,000 people. Miners and their families from many different worlds lived here. They had built a good life in this quiet corner of space, now that life was about to end. "Any word from the fleet?" Thexla asked. Qatar shook her head. "The nearest ships are 3 weeks away. We sent the distress signal 3 days ago, but..." She did not finish. They both knew no help would come in time. Down in the main shelter, families pressed together in fear. Children cried while their parents tried to comfort them. The air recyclers worked hard to keep everyone breathing as more people crowded into the safe areas. Little Zara, only 6 years old, pressed her face against the thick window. She watched the enemy ships move closer. "Mama, why are the bad ships here?" she asked. Her mother held her tight. "I don't know, little one. But the station guards will keep us safe." But the guards were running out of bullets. Their small defense guns could barely scratch the enemy armor. The station had never been built for war. It was just a place where people worked and lived in peace. Commander Thexla walked through the shelter areas. She tried to look brave, but inside she felt sick. These people trusted her to protect them. She had failed. The miners had stopped working days ago when the raiders first appeared. Now they helped move supplies and comfort the scared children. Old Grek, who had worked the asteroid mines for 40 years, patted a crying boy on the head. "Don't worry, son," Grek said in his rough voice. "My crew has been through worse storms than this." But even Grek's hands shook as he spoke. Everyone knew this was different. The Zephyrians did not take prisoners. They did not ask for money. They just destroyed everything and everyone. In the command center, the few remaining officers watched their screens with growing fear. The enemy was taking their time, like cats playing with mice before the kill. "They want us to suffer," said Lieutenant Vex. "They could have destroyed us already." "Maybe they are waiting for something," Qatar said. "What could they be waiting for?" Thexla asked. Before anyone could answer, the largest enemy ship moved forward. It was 3 times bigger than their station. Massive guns pointed at them like the eyes of death. "Commander, they are powering up their main weapons," Qatar reported. Her voice was barely a whisper. Thexla closed her eyes. This was it. She had hoped they might have more time, but the Zephyrians were ready to finish them. "All hands, prepare for..." she started to say. "Wait," Qatar shouted. "The weapon power is dropping. They are pulling back." On the main screen, they watched as the big enemy ship moved away from the station. The other raider ships formed a new pattern around them. "What are they doing?" Vex asked. "Maybe they want to board us," Thexla said. "Take the station instead of destroying it. That might be worse." Everyone had heard stories about what the Zephyrians did to prisoners. Hours passed. The enemy ships stayed in position but did not attack. The station's shields flickered and sparked as they slowly failed. The air felt heavy with fear and the smell of burning electronics. In the shelter, families shared their last meals together. Some people prayed to their gods. Others wrote messages to family members on distant worlds, hoping someone might find the messages after. After it was over, young pilot Jack sat with his pregnant wife Mila. "I'm sorry," he whispered to her. "I brought you to this place. I thought we would be safe here." Mila took his hand. "We had good years here." "Happy years. That counts for something." Children who were too young to understand drew pictures with crayons. They drew their families, their pets, and bright suns. The adults watched them and tried not to cry. Commander Thexla made one last check of the station's defenses. The defense guns had almost no ammunition left. The shields were at 15% power and dropping fast. Emergency power would last maybe 6 more hours. She sent one final message on all emergency frequencies. "This is Kepler Station. We are under attack by Zephyrian raiders. 12,000 civilians need help. Our defenses are failing. If anyone receives this message, please remember us. Tell the galaxy what happened here." The message went out into space, traveling at light speed to distant worlds. But light was too slow. Help was too far away. As the station's lights dimmed to save power, Thexla looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other people lived free and happy lives. They would never know about the 12,000 souls who were about to die in this forgotten corner of space. The enemy ships began to move again. This time they came with purpose. The waiting was over. The siege of Kepler Station was about to become a massacre. Deep in the station's sensor room, Ensign Qatar stared at her screen with confusion. The numbers dancing across the display made no sense. She rubbed her tired eyes and looked again. But the readings stayed the same. Something big was moving out there in space. That can't be right, she whispered to herself. Qatar had worked with sensors for 5 years. She knew every type of ship signature, every kind of space rock, every trick that equipment could play on tired minds. But this was different. This was impossible. The gravity sensors showed massive objects moving through the asteroid field at the edge of the star system. The things were huge, bigger than the largest ships she had ever seen. But when she switched to visual sensors, she saw nothing. When she tried electromagnetic scans, there was only empty space. Computer. Run full diagnostic on sensor array, she said. The computer's calm voice replied, all sensors functioning within normal parameters. Qatar frowned. If the sensors were working fine, then what was causing these readings? She checked the timestamps. The strange signatures had started appearing 6 hours ago, right around the time the Zephyrian ships had stopped their attack. She pulled up the data from the past day. The gravity readings showed normal space traffic until the raiders arrived. Then everything went quiet as civilian ships fled or were destroyed. But now something else was out there. The objects were moving fast, too fast for normal ships. They seemed to be using the asteroid field as cover, weaving between the rocks like they knew exactly where each one was. Most ships would crash trying to fly that fast through such dangerous space. Qatar enhanced the readings and ran them through the computer's analysis programs. The results made her stomach feel sick. Whatever was out there was bigger than anything in the known databases. The mass readings suggested ships the size of small moons. But that's impossible, she said out loud. No one builds ships that big. She tried different sensor settings, hoping to get a visual on whatever was causing the readings. Infrared showed nothing. Electromagnetic sweeps found only background radiation. Even the station's most powerful telescopes saw nothing but empty space and floating rocks. But the gravity sensors didn't lie. Something massive was moving out there, and it was getting closer to the inner system. Qatar decided she had to tell Commander Thexla. She copied the sensor data to a portable device and hurried to the command center. The corridors were darker now as the station saved power. People moved quietly, speaking in whispers as if afraid the enemy might hear them. In the command center, Thexla stood looking at tactical displays showing the Zephyrian ships. The enemy formation had changed. Instead of preparing for a final attack, they seemed to be waiting for something. Commander, Qatar said, I need to show you something. Thexla turned. The older officer's face showed the stress of the past few days. Her usually neat uniform was wrinkled and dark circles surrounded her eyes. What is it, Qatar? The sensors are picking up strange readings from the outer system. Qatar plugged her device into the main display. Look at this. The gravity sensor data appeared on the big screen. Thexla studied the numbers for a moment, then shook her head. Sensor ghosts, she said. The bombardment must have damaged something. We're seeing echoes from the enemy ships. No, Commander. I ran full diagnostics. The sensors are working perfectly. And look at the timestamps. These readings started before the raiders stopped their attack. Lieutenant Vex joined them at the display. He pointed at the data tracks. These things are huge, and moving too fast. Nothing flies like that through an asteroid field. Maybe it's a natural phenomenon, Thexla suggested. Asteroid collisions can cause strange readings. Qatar pulled up more data. Commander, I've been tracking these signatures for hours. They're not random. They're moving with purpose, like they're heading somewhere specific. Where? Thexla asked. Qatar highlighted the trajectory paths on the display. Here, toward us. The command center fell quiet. Everyone stared at the screen showing invisible objects moving through space toward their dying station. How long until they reach us? Vex asked. Qatar checked the calculations. At their current speed, maybe 2 hours. But Commander, there's something else. She pulled up the most recent readings. The signatures are getting stronger. Much stronger. Either these things are getting bigger or they're getting closer than my calculations show. Thexela studied the data one more time. Her military training told her to consider all possibilities, but her practical experience said this was just broken equipment giving false hope. Qatar, I understand you want to believe help is coming. We all do. But we can't base our decisions on sensor errors. Commander, please. What if it's not an error? What if someone really is coming? Who? Thexela spread her hands. The nearest Allied fleet is weeks away. There are no other military ships in this sector, and even if there were, nothing moves this fast or hides this well. Qatar felt frustration building in her chest. Maybe it's a new type of ship. Maybe it's someone we haven't met before. Or maybe, Lieutenant Vex said gently, the stress is making us see things that aren't there. But Qatar couldn't give up. She had spent her whole career reading sensor data. She trusted her instruments more than her own eyes sometimes. And right now, those instruments were screaming that something big was coming. She returned to her sensor station and continued monitoring the readings. The invisible objects kept moving closer. Their gravity signatures grew stronger with each passing minute. Whatever they were, they would reach the inner system soon. Down in the shelters, families continued to wait. Children slept in their parents' arms while adults stared at the walls and wondered how much time they had left. No one knew about the strange sensor readings. No one knew that Qatar was watching something impossible approach through the darkness of space. Outside, the Zephyrian ships maintained their positions. Their commanders seemed nervous about something, though they gave no sign of retreat. Perhaps they were also detecting strange readings. Perhaps they were waiting to see what would happen next. In the gas giant below the station, something stirred in the crushing depths. The massive planet's thick atmosphere swirled and churned as if disturbed by some great presence moving in the darkness, far below the surface. But the station's sensors couldn't penetrate that deep into the planet's core. They couldn't detect what was rising slowly through layers of compressed gas and liquid metal. They couldn't see the ancient predator preparing to emerge from the abyss. Qatar watched her screens and waited. Whatever was coming, it would arrive soon. She just hoped it would be in time to save them all. The gas giant below Kepler Station had been quiet for millions of years. Its thick clouds swirled in endless storms, hiding depths that no ship had ever explored. The pressure down there could crush any known vessel in seconds. The heat could melt the strongest metals, but something was moving in those crushing depths. Qatar watched her sensors as the readings grew stronger. Whatever was causing the gravity disturbances was now directly below them, somewhere deep inside the planet. The numbers on her screen climbed higher and higher. "Commander," she called out. "The readings are off the scale now. Something huge is moving inside the gas giant." Thexela rushed to her station. "That's impossible. Nothing can survive down there." Before Qatar could answer, the planet's surface began to change. The swirling clouds started to glow with a strange light. Deep below the visible surface, something was rising. In the Zephyrian command ship, alarms began to sound. Their sensors were detecting massive energy buildups from the gas giant. Admiral Kresh studied the readings with growing concern. "What is happening down there?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," his officer replied. "The energy levels are unlike anything in our databases. Could it be a weapon? Some kind of planetary defense system? We detect no artificial structures, sir. But something is definitely rising from the planet's core." Admiral Kresh had attacked dozens of colonies. He had never seen anything like this. His instincts told him to retreat, but pride kept him in position. The Zephyrian Empire did not run from mysteries. On Kepler Station, families in the shelters felt a strange vibration through the metal floors. It was different from the explosions they had endured for days. This felt deeper, like the heartbeat of something enormous. Little Zara pressed her face against the window again. "Mama, look! The big planet is glowing." Her mother looked and gasped. The gas giant's clouds were indeed glowing, growing brighter by the second. Deep inside the planet, something was burning its way to the surface. Qatar's screens showed impossible readings. The object rising from the planet's core was accelerating despite the crushing pressure around it. Whatever technology could survive down there was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Commander, it's breaking through the upper atmosphere," she reported. The gas giant's surface erupted like a volcano. Massive amounts of superheated gas shot into space as something enormous burst from the depths. The explosion lit up the entire system with brilliant light. From the heart of that explosion came a ship. It was like nothing anyone had ever seen. Dark metal scarred by unimaginable pressures gleamed in the light of the distant star. The ship was long and sleek, built like a predator. Steam and glowing gas trailed behind it like the breath of an ancient dragon. The vessel rose from the planet's atmosphere with smooth, deadly grace. It was huge, easily the size of the largest Zephyrian battleship, but it moved like a fighter craft. No ship should be able to fly after emerging from a gas giant's core, but this one showed no damage at all. Qatar stared at her readings in amazement. The ship, it's not just functional. Its weapons are already charging. On every screen in the system, a new signal appeared. The voice that came through the speakers was calm, cold, and completely confident. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Defiant. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system immediately. The words were spoken in perfect galactic standard, but the accent was unfamiliar. More importantly, no one had ever heard of United Earth or humans before. In the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kresh felt a chill run down his spine. United Earth? What species is that? His intelligence officer searched through their databases. No records, sir. We've never encountered this species before. How is that possible? We know every spacefaring race in this sector. Sir, the ship's energy signature is unusual. Their technology appears to be completely unknown. Admiral Kresh studied the strange vessel on his main screen. It hung in space like a waiting predator, its weapons pointed directly at his fleet. The ship radiated power and confidence in a way that made his veteran officers nervous. 30 seconds? He said aloud. Who do these humans think they are? But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his mind. Any ship that could survive inside a gas giant was not to be taken lightly. Any species that could build such technology was clearly more advanced than the Zephyrians had expected. On Kepler Station, the civilians pressed against the windows to stare at their unexpected savior. The ship looked powerful and dangerous, but it had come to help them. For the first time in days, hope began to replace despair. Commander Thexla opened communications with the human ship. Captain Chen, this is Commander Thexla of Kepler Station. We are civilians under attack by Zephyrian raiders. We have 12,000 people aboard, including families and children. Understood, Commander, came the reply. Take your people to the safest areas of your station. This will be over shortly. The confidence in the human captain's voice was absolute. She spoke like victory was already assured. 15 seconds passed. The Zephyrian fleet made no move to retreat. 20 seconds. 25. Admiral Kresh made his decision. One unknown ship, no matter how advanced, could not defeat his entire fleet. All ships attack formation. Destroy the unknown vessel. The 30 seconds expired. Captain Chen's voice came across all frequencies one final time, and now it carried the cold promise of death. So be it. The human warship moved. It didn't accelerate slowly like normal vessels. It didn't turn with the careful movements of standard space combat. The UES Defiant moved like a living thing, like a shark that had been waiting patiently in dark waters for the perfect moment to strike. The ship's weapon systems came online with a sound like thunder rolling across the void. Energy patterns unlike anything the Zephyrians had seen before began to build along the vessel's hull. On Kepler Station, Qatar watched her sensors with amazement. Commander, their power output is incredible. How is this possible? Thexla had no answer. She could only watch as the impossible ship from the abyss prepared to face an entire enemy fleet alone. In the shelters, children stopped crying. Adults held their breath. Even the station's failing systems seemed to quiet down, as if the entire structure was waiting to see what would happen next. The darkness of space was about to become much more dangerous for the Zephyrian raiders. The UES Defiant struck like lightning. One moment the human ship hung motionless in space. The next moment it was among the Zephyrian raiders, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. The first enemy vessel exploded before its crew even realized they were under attack. Admiral Kresh watched in shock as his lead destroyer simply vanished in a ball of fire. What kind of weapons are those? On his screen, the human ship spun and fired again. Another Zephyrian vessel died. The weapons made no bright beams of energy like normal ship guns. Instead, they fired solid projectiles that hit with the force of meteors. Sir, those are kinetic weapons, his tactical officer reported. Physical projectiles moving at incredible speed. Kinetic weapons? What primitive species still uses those? But there was nothing primitive about how the humans used them. Each shot was perfectly aimed. Each hit destroyed or disabled an enemy ship. The human captain seemed to know exactly where each Zephyrian vessel would be before they moved there. The Defiant rolled between two enemy cruisers, firing at both simultaneously. Explosions lit up the darkness as both ships died. The human vessel emerged from the wreckage without a scratch, already targeting the next enemy. On Kepler Station, everyone watched the impossible battle on their screens. The human ship moved like it was alive, like it could think and feel and hunt. It dodged enemy fire that should have been impossible to avoid. How are they doing that? Lieutenant Vex whispered. Qatar studied her sensor readings. Their ship's computer systems are running calculations faster than our best processors. They're predicting enemy movements before the enemies make them. But it was more than just technology. The human crew fought with a coordination that spoke of long experience together. They moved their ship like it was an extension of their own bodies. Captain Chen's voice came over the communications again, but now she was speaking to her own crew. The station's sensors picked up internal human communications by accident. Rodriguez, target their engines. Don't let any of them escape to report back. Aye, Captain. Engine shots locked on 6 vessels. Patterson, damage report. Minor hull damage to Section 7. Nothing critical, Captain. Good. Johnson, what's the status on that flagship? Big and slow, Captain. Their shields are strong, but their turning speed is terrible. Then let's dance around them. The Defiant moved toward the Zephyrian flagship like a boxer approaching a much larger opponent. The massive enemy ship fired everything it had, but the human vessel slipped between the energy beams like smoke. Admiral Kresh pounded his command chair in frustration. How can one ship defeat my entire fleet? Sir, they seem to know our tactical patterns. Every move we make, they counter it perfectly. The truth was worse than the Zephyrian officers realized. Captain Chen had spent months studying every recorded battle the raiders had ever fought. She knew how they attacked, how they defended, how they retreated. The Zephyrians had become predictable through their success, but humans were unpredictable. The Defiant suddenly stopped its attack run and flew straight up, relative to the system's plane. 3 Zephyrian ships that had been moving to surround it crashed into each other instead. The explosions took out 2 more vessels that had been too close. Impossible, Admiral Kresh breathed. The human ship came down from above like a falling hammer. Its kinetic weapons fired in rapid sequence, each shot perfectly timed. The sound of metal tearing an atmosphere, venting echoed across all communication frequencies. But what truly terrified the Zephyrian crews was the humans' willingness to take damage for the sake of the civilians. When enemy fire came too close to the station, the Defiant moved to block it with its own hull. Captain, we're taking hits to protect the station, Rodriguez reported. Acceptable losses, Captain Chen replied calmly. Those people don't have shields. We do. The human ship's armor sparked and glowed as enemy weapons struck it, but it never moved away from protecting the civilians. Parts of the hull were torn open, but the ship kept fighting. On the station, Commander Thexla felt tears in her eyes. They're sacrificing their own ship to protect us. In the shelters, the civilians watched in amazement as the human vessel absorbed punishment meant for them. These strangers, these unknown humans, were risking their lives for people they had never met. Little Zara pressed her hands against the window. The brave ship is getting hurt, Mama. Yes, little one. But it's protecting us. The battle was turning into a massacre, but not the kind the Zephyrians had planned. Half their fleet was destroyed or disabled. The rest were trying to retreat, but the human ship was too fast. It picked them off one by one as they fled. Admiral Kresh finally realized the truth. His fleet wasn't fighting a single ship. They were fighting something entirely new in galactic warfare. The humans combined advanced technology with tactics no one had seen before. All remaining ships, full retreat, he ordered. Jump to hyperspace immediately. But Captain Chen had one more surprise. As the surviving Zephyrian vessels prepared to jump away, Lieutenant Rodriguez sent out a special transmission on all emergency frequencies. Attention Zephyrian vessels. This is the United Earth Navy. Our reinforcement fleets are already en route to this sector. We have your ship signatures. We know who you are. If you attack any more civilian colonies, we will find you. The message was a bluff. The Defiant was alone, the only human ship in this part of the galaxy. But the Zephyrians didn't know that. All they knew was that these humans had technology they couldn't match and fighting skills they couldn't understand. The remaining raider ships jumped away into hyperspace. leaving behind the wreckage of their comrades and their reputation for invincibility. The battle was over. The human ship had won. On Kepler Station, alarms finally stopped sounding. Emergency lights stopped flashing. For the first time in days, the corridors were quiet except for the sound of people crying with relief. The UES Defiant hung in space near the station, its hull scarred but intact. Steam vented from damaged sections, but the ship's weapons remained ready. Captain Chen wasn't taking any chances that more enemies might return. In the shelters, families held each other tight. Children who had been too scared to speak for days suddenly found their voices again. The nightmare was over. The humans had come from the abyss and they had brought salvation with them. 2 hours after the battle ended, Commander Thexla stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant. She had never been inside a human ship before. Everything felt different from what she knew. The bridge was smaller than expected, but every surface held purpose. The crew moved with quiet efficiency, checking systems and repairing damage. Their uniforms were practical and simple. No fancy decorations or symbols of rank covered their clothes. Captain Sarah Chen stood near the main window, looking out at the debris field where the Zephyrian fleet had been. She was shorter than most species Thexla knew, but her presence filled the room. When she spoke, everyone listened. "The civilian transports will arrive in 6 hours," Captain Chen said. "We'll escort them to the nearest safe system." "Captain," Thexla said quietly. "I need to ask you something." Chen turned. Her eyes were kind but tired. The battle had been won, but Thexla could see the weight of command on the human's shoulders. "Of course, Commander. What do you want to know? Why did you come?" "Why risk everything for strangers?" Captain Chen was quiet for a moment. She looked back at the debris field, then at the space where Kepler Station floated safely. "How long have you been in command, Thexla?" 15 years. Then you understand. When you take command, you make a promise. You promise to protect those who can't protect themselves. It doesn't matter if they're your own species or strangers you've never met. But your ship traveled for months to get here. You could have died hiding inside that gas giant. You took damage protecting us when you could have stayed safe. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his station. "Commander, may I tell her about Earth's history?" Captain Chen nodded. Rodriguez turned in his chair. "A long time ago on our homeworld, humans lived in small groups. Tribes, we called them. Life was dangerous. Wild animals, bad weather, disease, war between tribes. Any of these things could destroy a small group." He paused, checking his instruments before continuing. "But we learned something important. The tribes that helped each other survived. The ones that only cared about themselves died out. We learned that when someone calls for help, you answer, even if it's dangerous, even if it costs you everything. We have a saying," added Ensign Johnson from her station. "No one fights alone." Thexla felt her throat tighten with emotion. "But we're not your species. We're not your responsibility." Captain Chen stepped closer. "That's where you're wrong, Commander. The moment we heard your distress signal, you became our responsibility. That's what makes us human." Through the bridge windows, they could see small repair ships from the station, working to fix the damage from the battle. Families were returning to their homes. Children were playing in the corridors again. "Captain Chen," Qatar's voice came over the communication system. "We're receiving multiple messages from across the galaxy. News of the battle is spreading." "What kind of messages?" "Thank you messages mostly. From colonies that the Zephyrians had attacked. Also questions about who humans are and where we come from." Captain Chen smiled slightly. "I suppose we can't stay hidden anymore." On the main screen, a message appeared from the Galactic Council. It was an official invitation for humanity to join the galactic community. The message spoke of mutual defense treaties and trade agreements. "Will you accept?" Thexla asked. "That's not my decision to make," Captain Chen replied. "That's for Earth's government to decide. But I think they will. Humans don't like to stand alone when others need help." Over the next few hours, more ships arrived. Human rescue vessels came to help evacuate the most badly damaged areas of Kepler Station. Their medical teams worked alongside the station's doctors to treat the wounded. The human crews were polite and professional, but also warm and friendly. They shared food with the civilian families. They played games with the children. They helped fix things that had been broken during the attack. Little Zara followed a human engineer named Watson around the station. He let her hold his tools while he repaired damage to the walls. "Are all humans like you?" she asked. Watson smiled. "What do you mean?" "Brave and nice. We try to be, little one. We don't always succeed, but we try. In the main meeting room, Captain Chen sat with Commander Thexla and the station's civilian leaders. They were planning the evacuation to a safer system. The mining equipment can be moved, said Chief Engineer Grek, but it will take weeks. We have time, Captain Chen assured him. More human ships are coming to help. We won't leave until everyone is safe. Mayor Vash, an elderly Altarian, shook his head in wonder. I've lived for 90 years. I've seen many species, many kinds of people. But I've never seen anyone risk so much for strangers. You're not strangers anymore, Captain Chen said simply. That evening, Thexla found Captain Chen in the ship's small observation lounge. The human captain sat quietly watching the stars. Are you thinking about Earth? Thexla asked. I'm thinking about responsibility, Chen replied. Today we showed the galaxy what humanity stands for. Now we have to live up to that reputation. Do you think you can? Captain Chen was quiet for a long time. We'll try. That's all anyone can do. News of the rescue spread across the galaxy faster than the speed of light. Every species heard about the unknown humans who had emerged from nowhere to save 12,000 civilians. The story grew with each telling. Some called it impossible. Others called it a miracle. But on every world where people suffered under the threat of raiders and pirates, they began to hope that help might come from the darkness. In the weeks that followed, human ships appeared in other systems. They came to help build defenses around vulnerable colonies. They brought food to starving worlds. They carried medicine to places where disease had spread. The Zephyrian raids stopped completely in sectors where human ships patrolled. The raiders had learned to fear the species that fought not for conquest or glory, but simply because it was right. Years later, little Zara grew up to become a starship captain herself. She kept a picture on her bridge of the day the humans came. In the picture, a dark ship rose from a gas giant like a guardian angel, bringing hope to those who thought they were lost. She would tell new crew members about that day, about the humans who taught the galaxy what it meant to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. And whenever her ship received a distress signal, no matter how dangerous the situation, she would remember the words that had changed everything. No one fights alone.